Welcome to Pioneers in Payments, where payments experts share their insights. Now, here's our host, Donna Blum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Pioneers in Payments. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Anthony Serio from Serio Payments. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you were able to join us. I'm really looking forward to just having this conversation with you about all that's going on in the payments industry today. Lots of changes, lots of disruption. So before we get into all that, though, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your background in the payments industry, and then also the work that you do at Serio Payments?
Yeah, certainly. So I have been in the payment space for the last couple of decades and a few years on top of that as well. Mostly around cross-border and foreign exchange. So I've sat as a foreign currency trader. I've run a middle office, run a back office at brick and mortar banks. Also have worked in the fintech industry, building out banking operations, payment operations, risk and compliance. I am a proud payments nerd. I love all things payments. I find myself often delving into the NACHA operating rules handbook for ACH, like delving into the credit card world, and just really enjoy having any opportunity to talk about the payments industry in general.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to talk about the payments industry right here and now. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of changes going on in the industry today. And one of the purposes of this podcast is really to distill all that's going on and leave our audience with some, some sound bites or some best practices. So let's start with, what would you say is the greatest trend in the payments industry today?
Yeah, I think I'm going to bifurcate it a little bit because there's two parts to this, right? There's obviously digital and contactless payments that really has been spurred, mostly because of the COVID epidemic, right? And we saw a great need for cashless, but where I think we run into the bifurcation is that while the digital technology is important, financial inclusion always needs to be a part of this conversation. And cashless doesn't work for people who don't have access to tech stack. Cashless doesn't work for people that don't have access to any type of fintech technology because perhaps where they live, they don't get Wi-Fi or cell service in order to operate an app, right? So it's this constant struggle between innovation, but also making sure those that are underrepresented in particular minority groups or the unbanked groups, and how is it that we can bring this digital world and footprint full circle so that not only are we constantly innovating, getting payments to an instant space, but most importantly, making sure we're not leaving people behind. And I think that is where, as a community, a lot of us are struggling in, keeping financial security at the forefront, financial inclusion at the forefront, but we also are trying to push as diligently as we can in a very compliant manner the digital aspect and making payments faster and doing so globally, right? And getting outside of our local footprint. And I think that's really where we are going to see the greatest change. We see it, right? We've got RTPs out, we've got FedNow, that's becoming more fully adopted. We're getting toward that 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year world. Much like most of the other developed world, right? We've got PIX in Brazil, we've got SEPA in Europe. So we're all getting there. We're all working toward the same goal. But I'm hoping that as we advance digital and contactless, that that innovation includes everybody at the table.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you think about a group that would really benefit from, work today, get paid today. It's that underbanked group. But then how do they receive their payments in a digital world, right? So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that gig economy has, right? So you've got a couple of rails, right? You're always going to have ACH into somebody's bank account. But what you and I grew up thinking as a bank account meant that we would go into a bank, You would get a passbook, you would have a signature card, right? There would be like a physical transacting. Well, now you have the world of prepaid debit cards for the gig economy, right? You have online banking for the gig economy. So that way, folks don't really have to be attached to a brick and mortar bank or near a brick and mortar bank, because they would have access to cash via that plastic card. They would be able to withdraw from their paycheck and see how their benefits are being paid for. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, because the gig economy clearly is growing and has outpaced, the manufacturing sector, for example, right? And a lot of folks don't have access to banking because in the gig economy, it's not a steady source of income, right? And so perhaps their deposits aren't going to be high enough to avoid certain charges that would come associated with more of a traditional banking account.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we kind of talked about,
Yeah.
what the most notable trend is in the industry. There's a lot of organizations obviously out there that are processing payments, whether
Mhm.
they're traditional financial institutions or fintechs.
Yeah.
But what would you say is the greatest opportunity for these organizations?
Yeah, I think for me as a payments nerd, there's an opportunity for people to understand the data that resides within their customer base and where they're looking to innovate, where they're looking to advance the suite of products they have, to iterate these suite of products. You need to start looking at your customer base and the data, right? That's going to be the thing that's going to help you drive decisions. Also, it's going to give you a better insight into who is it that you're processing payments for, what types of processing have you been seeing versus where you're seeing trends move. Because a part of this, of course, is compliance monitoring, payment transaction monitoring, right? Helping to prevent fraud, helping to prevent any type of compliance issues. So I think data is really where folks in the payment industry are going to be able to glean the most from. And if you think about it, it's free information that already resides. You just have to figure out how best to utilize it in a compliant manner.
Yeah, we've kind of been had some side conversations about that as
Yeah,
well, and I think one of the challenges, which we're going to talk about next,
yeah,
is that with so many different siloed applications, they don't have all that data in one place. So if there's a way of consolidating all that data so they have perhaps a real-time, holistic view of all that data, that's really powerful information, right?
yeah, that's correct. I think what we're going to see and what we are beginning to see is consortiums, right? People where with a particular vendor, all of the members that use that vendor's software can become a consortium, right? So cybersecurity, they all can benefit from, they find a bad actor, they post the information that's allowed to be posted about the bad actor. You can check across that consortium to see if that bad actor is in your database and immediately turn off access, prevent fraud, give time for the folks on the compliance side to fully disposition what's going on. And then, if needed, do the next step, right? If there's suspicious activity, being able to elevate that activity. But really understanding that as a community, it's incumbent upon us to share this data. And then one step further then is that machine learning part, right? Is how do we all start to figure out how to start having more predictable algorithms using the data that we have to not only protect our clients from harm, but also preventing bad actors from coming on to platforms. Because fraud is going to happen. Frauders fraud. That's what they do for a living, right? It's their full-time job. And they're very good at it. But if we can get ahead of them just a little bit, we'll really be able to protect those in the payments industry that are just trying to transact, right? They just want to go online and buy something. They just want to send a friend money for their birthday. They want to split a bill at a restaurant on an app, right? All these things that they want to do. But safety is key. And so having these consortiums and having this sharing of data is going to be important. And then that final piece is really about consumer education, giving them those insights, explain to them, hey, this is why we're using the data. This is what we're trying to prevent. This is what we've seen. We understand the trend, but we're trying to keep ahead of the fraudsters because we don't want somebody taking over your account or getting your personal information in any way and then conducting nefarious payment activities with your money.
Yeah, that's so true. So, fraud is obviously a problem for everyone, and
Yeah.
it's a growing problem.
Yeah.
But the solution, I believe, is going to involve some sort of collaboration, right, as an
Yeah.
industry. If one organization learns something that can help all other organizations, that really should be shared, right? So,
Yeah, there's the concept in the BSA AML world. If you're a bank or a particular institution that has safe harbor from the USA Patriot Act, right? We can exchange data safely back and forth. But if you're a fintech, you're outside of that world, right? You don't have the safe harbor protections, and this is where these consortiums are kind of coming in and getting folks to kind of understand, right? So a lot of this is going to be legislative work, right? Unfortunately, Congress is a deliberate body, so it's going to take a while for the data-driven aspect of our industry to kind of push the legislative agenda and make changes to the USA Patriot Act and provide some enhancements so that we're having a broader scope of people at the table being able to share information. And also, too, I think it's going to be incumbent upon banks to be more comfortable with fintechs sitting at the table. Because for the longest time, it was financial institutions alone have safe harbor and can share data between each other and with law enforcement. But if I'm a fintech firm and I'm the person that's helping initiating this money movement, I'm the one that has the data first, right? So to prevent playing telephone and to prevent passing things back and forth, at some point we're going to have everyone involved in the process. At the end of the day, I see this as a strong thing, right? Having everyone seeing something and then saying something, that corny saying that we've been talking about for the last 20 years, but it's true, right? In payments, if you see suspicious or unusual activity, you need to raise your hand and say something immediately, because at the end of the day, it's about benefiting consumers. Without consumers, we don't have our businesses, and then we don't have jobs, right? So I think it's really incumbent to be welcoming, to invite people to the table where folks are uncomfortable, allow us to have these conversations and say, hey, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is prevent fraud, right? Lower risk, de-risk your bank charter from future risk, right? Nobody wants to be having a bank partner and then causing risk for that bank partner. That just doesn't work out very well, right? But where we can share data, where we can share information, where we can collaborate together, I think makes for a stronger marketplace. And honestly, I think it spurs that competitive nature between all of us, right? And it's really going to start to show banks, hey, you know what? We need fintechs too, because they're bringing things to the plate that we don't necessarily have time to think about. But if we could partner with them, we could then have stronger tools for our traditional banking customers that may not even be aware of these products or services. But once they understand the protections that we're putting in place, that may then open up a whole other marketplace. And let's face it, there's nothing wrong with fee revenue and making money. It's not about the bottom line all the time, but I think that's one thing that we should be open to discussing, is that partnerships does mean everybody gets to make money. And for me, the true benefit is that we get more consumers to come to faster payments, to digital payments, to contactless, and we get to really push the boundaries of the payment industry.
Yeah, everybody benefits. So
yeah, it's a win-win-win.
Right. I like it. Okay, so we kind of talked about the greatest opportunity being this, consortium and collaboration.
Yeah.
What would you say is the greatest challenge for organizations that process payments today?
Yeah, I am a huge advocate of education. I have spent the last 25 plus years reading every single thing I can get my hands on. Now, it doesn't mean everyone's going to want to do that, right? Some of the stuff is pretty dry. It's not really a turn pager, right? It's not a novel that you went to the bookstore to buy to sit on the beach and relax and read, but sharing the educational parts, right? If you're a company and you are going to get into the ACH world, you need to understand the NACHA operating rules and guidelines. You need to send your employees to the payment institute that is run by NACHA. If you're going to be on the card side, you need to work with Visa, MasterCard. They also offer certifications and classes to help educate people. But it can't be a one-time thing. These are repetitive things because rules are constantly changing. Trends in fraud and cybersecurity are constantly changing. So allowing people to get the certifications that they need to become experts in the payment space are important. I am a huge advocate of various conferences, right? Because there are conferences for all aspects, for all areas of payments. If you have folks that are net new, let them go to a conference so they can learn, gain experience, make contacts with people in the payment space. Now they have an available directory of people that they can pick up the phone and talk to, have conversations with. When they're confused, they can be like, hey, who should I talk to about this? If they call me, I'll be like, oh, because I still have all the business cards for all these years, right? I'm like, hey, this person is really great in this, and I just heard them give a speech, and this is what it was on, and they were on this panel. It was fantastic. Let me set up a meeting. At the end of the day, we're all one community, and we do really want to be here to support each other. So education for your staff is the most important, above and beyond just the standard things that you have to do every year, is really start to ask the people in the payment space at your company what they want to do, and be a willing and desirable partner in that, and allow them to explore things. Having an operations staff that knows just enough to keep you out of trouble is a pretty low bar to meet, right? But we need to get past that, right? You need to get people with those certifications in, because then they're going to want to stay, right? You don't want people coming in for a couple of years, learning some things, not having an opportunity to grow, and then taking all that institutional knowledge and taking it somewhere else, right? So education is the key there.
Yeah, I think that's great. The tie between education and retention, right? I mean,
yes,
everybody is having a difficult time hiring qualified, finding qualified talent. If you have somebody good on staff, you want to keep them, and education's a big part of that.
Yeah, hiring is very expensive.
Yes.
Right. And I guarantee you the cost of taking a training class and getting a certification is less than it is to hire a net new person and then train them up to get to where the person they're replacing was at. So, yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, and I'll just put in a plug too. The way you and I met was through the Faster Payments Council. We both serve on a work group. It's the operational considerations for instant and immediate payments. So, just it's been a great way as I've been attending these conferences for me to meet other. I wouldn't put myself in the payments expert category, but I've met a lot of payments experts and have interviewed them on the podcast.
Yeah, the thing I love is every time I go to something like the U.S. Faster Payments Council, or we have a Zoom call about something that a working group is working on, somebody says something, and I love it when I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but now I need to get in touch with this person, because for as much as we think we know, there's always somebody that knows something that we don't know. But the collaboration and the spirit of coming together and being on this journey of self-discovery and where's the faster payments world going to go is fantastic. And the folks at the U.S. Faster Payments Council are outstanding. So if you haven't joined, shameless plug, do get a hold of them or get a hold of me. Happy to make intros. but it is definitely worth it. I've met some fantastic people, and don't know why it took me so long to do this, but really, really happy that I have, because I believe that professionally I've grown a lot since participating in these working groups.
I feel the same way. So
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Well, so as we kind of wrap things up, what would you say is your silver bullet piece of advice for organizations that process payments?
Yeah, there is a train at the station that has been pulling away for the last 5 years, and that's the digital world train. It's time to get aboard because it's about to depart. So if you're not familiar with the digital space, the fintech space, blockchain technology, not volatility training for cryptocurrency, because I'd like to try to keep that separated, but what smart contracts can do, right? What is ISO 20022? What is that standard? How is it that fintechs and banks are going to have to come together with various messages as we're moving money around the world? What else can we do with it above and beyond the standard that's been set, right? If you look at the diasporas in the world that need to move money from the United States to Africa, the United States to South America, to Central America, to Southeast Asia, there's a lot of regulatory stuff that gets kind of caught up and delays payments. Well, with a blockchain smart contract, there's nothing that we can't program on chain. All of those data points that you need, we can put in. So get on the train, for digital payments. Attend these conferences, go on to LinkedIn, start meeting people, look at the webinars that exist. Because I think if you miss an opportunity to either partner with a fintech or to be a part of this community, you're going to be underserving your customers. They're going to take notice, and then they're going to go to where they're best served.
And I'm going to put in a shameless plug. So watch previous podcast episodes too. You might gain some information that way and make some new connections as well.
Yeah, exactly. I did. So check them out. It's cool. Also, the cool thing is you're going to see people's names perhaps for the first time, and then you go find out what it is that they do, and you're like, oh, I need to contact this person because I'm working with a client and this is what they're trying to do, and it's not my wheelhouse, but it's clearly this person's wheelhouse. How can I borrow and leverage their expertise to help my client grow and scale and get to market faster?
And that is exactly why we're doing this. So
Right.
All right. Well, Anthony, before I let you go, I want to make sure that our audience knows how to get in touch with you, learn more about the services you provide.
Yeah.
So what would you like to share?
Yeah, you could reach me at Anthony@seriopay.org. That's SERIOPAY.org. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to the website, which is seriopay.com. We specialize in operational governance framework. So if you have a touch point in the payments industry, we are here to help you avoid the pitfalls, understand the compliance and regulatory framework that you need to have in place, the risks that are associated with payments. We love writing policy and procedure. And most important, as you develop your product suite, we're also going to help you better understand the headcount needs that you're going to have. Because it's one thing to understand operating rules and compliance and risk guidance. It's another thing to be able to anticipate when you need staff, so that when you get ready to have a partnership with a bank in order to be able to move money, they will see that you have the right staffing in place, that you have the policies in place, and that you're ready to go to market. And that's what we love doing. So again, Anthony@SerioPay.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn, reach out, and we're always happy just to have a conversation. And if we can't help you, we will definitely refer you to one of our partners that can.
Fantastic. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today. Really appreciate all that you shared. I'm sure our audience does too. And I just want to thank everybody for watching. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.